The day my life shattered started with a simple text message. It wasn't meant for me. I was just borrowing my husband David's phone to look up a recipe, and there it was, a notification from my name I didn't recognize. "Thinking of you," it said, followed by a heart emoji. My own heart stopped. For a moment, the world went silent. I clicked on it, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. The messages that unfolded were a tapestry of deceit, a secret life David had been living right under my nose. All the late nights at the office, the sudden business trips. It all crashed down on me. Betrayal is a cold, sharp thing. It steals the air from your lungs and leaves you gasping in the wreckage of what you thought was your life. We had been married for 25 years. We built a home, raised a son, shared 1,000 inside jokes. How could this be happening? That evening, the house felt like a stage set for a tragedy. David came home, oblivious, humming a tune. The sound grated on my raw nerves. I couldn't look at him. I just sat at the kitchen table, his phone lying between us like an unexploded bomb. He finally noticed my silence. "Honey, what's wrong?" "You're pale." I just pushed the phone towards him. The color drained from his face as he saw the open messages. There were no grand theatrics, no shouting match, just a heavy, suffocating silence. He tried to explain, the usual pathetic excuses. It was a mistake. It meant nothing. He was stressed. Each word was a fresh stab. I felt numb, disconnected from my own body, watching this stranger who wore my husband's face. Our son, Leo, who was 22 and home from college for the summer, walked in on this frozen tableau. He took one look at our faces and knew. "Mom, Dad, what's going on?" I couldn't speak. My throat was tight with unched tears. David, to his credit, didn't try to hide it. He confessed, his voice cracking. "I messed up, Leo. I messed up badly." I watched my son's face transform from confusion to disbelief, and then to a quiet, simmering anger that mirrored my own. He looked at his father, the man he'd idolized his whole life, and I saw the pedestal crumble. He came to my side, put a hand on my shoulder, and simply said, "I'm with you, Mom." In that moment, his quiet support was the only thing holding me together. The days that followed were a blur of hollow conversations and sleepless nights. David moved into the guest room. The house, once filled with laughter, was now heavy with unspoken words. He kept trying to apologize, to fix what was irrevocably broken. He'd leave coffee for me in the morning, offer to do chores, but it all felt like a performance. The trust, the very foundation of our marriage, was gone. I felt like I was grieving for a man who was still alive, for a life that was now just a collection of memories tainted by lies. I looked at our wedding photos and felt nothing but a profound sense of loss. Who was that smiling young woman? I didn't recognize her anymore. Leo was my rock. He was quiet, but his presence was a constant comfort. He'd make me tea, sit with me while I stared blankly at the TV, and just be there. He was furious with his father, a cold rage that was almost unnerving in its intensity. He barely spoke to David. One afternoon, I overheard them arguing in the hallway. Leo's voice was low and controlled. "How could you do this to her? To us?" David's replies were mumbled and weak. The hero worship was gone, replaced by a painful disillusionment. I knew this was hurting Leo just as much as it was hurting me, and that added another layer to my pain. A family isn't just a couple, it's a delicate ecosystem, and David's actions had poised and the entire environment. About a week into this nightmare, I was sorting through old photos, trying to find a version of my life that still felt real, when Leo came into the room. He looked unusually determined. "Mom," he said, "I have an idea. It's unconventional, but I think it's what Dad needs." I looked at him, intrigued. He proceeded to lay out a plan so audacious, so out of left field, that I was speechless. He wanted to use his tech skills. He proposed creating a fake online profile, someone who would reach out to his father, to see if he had learned anything, to see if his remorse was genuine or just a desperate attempt to avoid consequences. He wanted to see if David would take the bait. My first reaction was to say no. It felt like playing games, like sinking to his level. It was manipulative. But then I looked at my son's face, at the righteous fire in his eyes. This wasn't just about revenge for him, it was about seeking a truth we both desperately needed. Was the man we loved truly gone, or was he just lost? Was there anything left to salvage? Part of me was terrified of the answer, but a bigger part needed to know. David's apologies fell hollow because they were just words. Leo was offering a way to test his actions. After a long silence, I looked at my son and said to words I never thought I would, "Okay, do it." Leo set to work immediately. He was brilliant. He created a completely believable persona, Clara, a woman in her late 40s, recently divorced, professional, and living in a nearby city. He used stock photos, created a backstory, and joined a few online hobby groups he knew his father frequented. It was unsettling to watch him work, to see the ease with which he could construct a digital lie, but I understood his motive. He was a son trying to understand the father who had disappointed him so deeply. He wasn't just my ally. He was a detective in his own family drama, searching for clues to a man he thought he knew. It didn't take long. Clara initiated contact with David through a photography forum, commenting on one of his posts. The conversation started innocently enough. Photography, travel, shared interests. I watched over Leo's shoulder as the messages came in, my heart pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. David was cautious at first, but Clara was patient, charming, and understanding. She was everything a man in his position would want, a sympathetic ear, a fresh start with no baggage. Leo knew exactly which buttons to push. He crafted messages that were validating, that made David feel seen and heard in a way he claimed I no longer did. It was a masterclass in manipulation, and I was a willing accomplice. As the days turned into a week, the conversations became more personal. David started to open up to Clara about his difficult situation at home. He painted himself as the victim, a misunderstood husband in a stale marriage. Reading his words felt like being stabbed all over again. He told Clara he was separated, conveniently leaving out the reason why. He was curating a narrative where he was free and available. The man who was begging for my forgiveness in the kitchen was simultaneously building a bridge to a new fantasy online. Leo would just look at me, his jaw tight, as each new message confirmed our worst fears. There was no deep remorse, only self-pity and a desire to escape. The moment of truth came when Clara suggested they meet for coffee, just as friends, she typed. My breath caught in my throat. This was the final test. Would he cross the line from digital flirtation to a real-world meeting? Would he take that final step in betraying me all over again? We waited. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Then the reply came. I would love that. He not only agreed, but suggested a place, a quiet cafe halfway between our town and the fictional city where Clara lived. He was actively planning the rendezvous. There it was. The final nail in the coffin of our marriage. Black and white proof that his apologies were meaningless. He hadn't changed. He hadn't learned. The day of the planned date arrived. Leo and I didn't go to the cafe. We didn't need to. We already had our answer. That morning, I walked into the guest room where David was getting ready. He was dressed a little nicer than usual. He said he was meeting an old colleague. The lie was so easy for him. I just looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel anger or sadness. I felt nothing, just a cold, clear certainty. I waited until he left. Then, Leo and I packed a bag for him. We put all of his things from the guest room into a suitcase. And on top, we placed a printout of his entire conversation with Clara. When David returned that evening from his failed date, expecting to find the house as he'd left it, he found his suitcase waiting for him by the front door. I was sitting on the stairs with Leo. He saw the suitcase, then the papers on top of it, and he finally understood. The colour drained from his face. There was nothing left to say, no more lies to tell. He looked from the papers to me, then to his son. The look in Leo's eyes was not one of triumph, but of profound disappointment and sorrow. He had given his father one last chance to be the man he wanted him to be, and his father had failed.